Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. They say silence is golden, but that night it was suffocating. The kind of silence that buzzes in your ears like static, loud, pressing, impossible to ignore. It wrapped around me like a wet towel as I stood by the host's stand at Kester and Vine, the swanky, low-lit bistro my wife always claimed was too pretentious for her taste. I was supposed to be at home, in sweatpants, reheating the same leftover chili for the third night in a row. But instead, I was there, wearing a jacket that still smelled like her perfume from 3 weeks ago, holding a reservation that didn't belong to me. The reservation was under the name Dawson. Not my last name, not hers, just a hunch, a wild, gnawing, middle-of-the-night gut feeling that had been eating away at me for weeks. The host didn't question it, just smiled and gestured me toward the back. I followed, my steps slow, heart thudding like a snare drum in my throat. That's when I saw her, Myra, sitting at a dimly lit corner table with her back toward me. Her hands weren't folded on the menu like she always did with me. They were reaching across the table, holding someone else's. Someone who wasn't her husband. Someone who wasn't me. He leaned in close. She laughed. Not the little chuckle she gave when she found something genuinely funny. No, this was that fake, flirty laugh she used back in college. Like a song she hadn't sung in years but suddenly remembered the words to. She was glowing. And it wasn't from the candlelight. I didn't march over. I didn't storm out. I didn't call her name or make a scene. I walked, calmly, slowly, each step deliberate, each second pressing down on my ribs like a weight. I stopped right at their table. She didn't see me at first. He did. His eyes widened just slightly, not in fear, but in that cold, calculating way men look when they know they've won something they had no right to take. Myra turned. And when she saw me, her smile didn't drop. It froze. That was worse. Much worse. I didn't ask her why. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't even ask how long. Instead, I said something that wiped that frozen smirk off her face faster than any slap could have. I reserved this table for 3, I said calmly, sliding into the booth beside them like I belonged there. Myra's eyes darted toward the man across from her, then back to me. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Her fingers twitched, still laced in his, as if she forgot they were holding hands. He stiffened, pulled away, and sat upright like a soldier caught sleeping on duty. The silence that followed was heavy, thicker than the wine she hadn't even sipped yet. How did you? Myra finally stuttered. I guessed, I replied, picking up her untouched menu and flipping through it as if I were deciding between the steak or the salmon. Funny thing happens when your wife says she's working late, for the 4th time in 10 days. You start noticing things, like receipts in coat pockets for places she supposedly hates, like texts from unknown numbers with little fire emojis, like perfume on a jacket that doesn't match yours. He had the audacity to speak before she did. Listen, man. I cut him off without looking up. Don't, I said. Don't pretend like you didn't know. You booked the reservation under your name. That's cute. But her phone auto-syncs to our shared calendar. Rookie mistake. Myra looked like she might cry, or laugh, or scream. It was hard to tell. I wasn't going to do anything tonight, I continued. I really wasn't. I actually made it halfway through reheating chili. But something about how quiet the apartment felt told me you weren't just working on a client proposal. And then I remembered this place. You said it was too fancy, too fake. But here you are, looking real cozy. She finally found her voice. Darvin, I didn't mean for you to find out this way. That sentence. That stupid sentence. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. Like this was a surprise party gone wrong. Like the balloons didn't arrive in time and I just ruined the big reveal. I looked at her then, really looked, and what I saw wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was panic. The kind people get when they've been caught cheating on a test and realize the teacher's walking over. You didn't mean for me to find out at all, I said. That's the point. The man, he still hadn't given his name, shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat. Myra reached for her glass but knocked it over, sending water spilling into her lap. She gasped, more embarrassed than anything, and muttered something about needing to go to the restroom. She got up, wobbled slightly, didn't look back. I turned to him. So, do you always go after married women, or is this your first trophy? His eyes narrowed. You think she's some prize? No, I replied. I think she's yours now. And I stood up, dropped my wedding ring in the middle of the table, right between their wine glasses, and walked out. I didn't look back either. But that wasn't the end. Because what happened later that night made the dinner feel like a warm-up act. When I walked out of that restaurant, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel powerful or free or even angry. I just felt hollow. Like I had just watched my own life happen to someone else. I kept walking for blocks, not even knowing where I was headed, the cold air biting my face harder with every step. My wedding ring wasn't on my finger anymore. It was probably still sitting on that table, next to a half-eaten salad and a bottle of wine I paid for without knowing. I ended up back at our apartment around midnight. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat on the floor by the front door like some sad guard dog waiting for something, anything, to make sense. I don't even remember how long I sat there, but eventually, I heard the sound of keys fumbling in the lock. For a second, I genuinely thought she might not come back. That maybe, just maybe, she'd take the hint and stay gone. But Myra walked in like nothing had happened. Worse, she was smiling. Not the smile she gives strangers or coworkers. It was my smile. The one she used to give me after a long day, when she'd curl up on the couch and rest her head on my shoulder. She looked down at me on the floor like I was the one who had explaining to do. "You're still up?" she said casually, like she hadn't just spent the evening entwined with another man's fingers. "I saw you," I said quietly. "I sat at your table." Her face shifted just slightly, a tiny flinch in her cheek. Then she dropped her bag and sighed. "So now what? You want to scream? Throw something? Is that what this is going to be?" I blinked. No, I already did what I needed to do. That caught her off guard. "Which is what?" I gave him my blessing. Told him you're all his now. She scoffed. "You don't get to give me away like some piece of furniture, Darvin. You already gave yourself away. I just signed the receipt." That made her go quiet. She walked past me into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stared into it like there was some wisdom hiding behind the leftover soup and almond milk. I stood up, finally feeling the ache in my knees from sitting too long. Myra turned to me slowly. "I didn't want it to go like this." "Then why did it?" "Because you stopped trying," she snapped, voice rising. "Because you come home and complain about your day but never ask about mine. Because I've felt invisible for months, Darvin." "And so your solution was him?" She didn't answer. I walked past her into the bedroom and pulled a small bag from the closet. I had started packing weeks ago, not because I knew, but because something inside me did. I didn't say another word. I just zipped it up, walked back to the living room, and grabbed my coat. "I'll stay at Joel's," I said. "For a few days. You can have the apartment." She leaned on the counter, crossing her arms. "You think leaving makes you noble?" "No," I said. "But it'll keep me from saying something I'll regret." And with that, I walked out again. But I had no idea what I was walking into, because when I checked my phone in the elevator, I saw something that made my heart drop all over again. A message from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I know who he really is, and you need to talk to me now." I stood in the elevator clutching my phone like it might explode. The message was still glowing on the screen. "You don't know me, but I know who he really is, and you need to talk to me now." No name, no number saved, just that one line, and it felt more urgent than anything Myra had ever confessed to me. I stepped out into the lobby, looked around like someone might be watching, then called the number. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I couldn't even form one. 10 minutes later, as I sat in my car outside my buddy Joel's building, another message came through. "Come to 203 North Alder. I'll explain everything. Bring no one. Don't tell her." My hands were shaking. Joel's apartment was just a few feet away, but something told me to follow this. My gut had already screamed once tonight, and it had been right. So I started the engine and drove. North Alder was the kind of street you don't drive down unless you have a reason. Faded porch lights. A rusted-out truck half swallowed by weeds. House numbers barely visible in the dark. I parked under a broken street lamp and stared at the house with a cracked wooden porch and the number 203 scrawled in fading gold paint. I walked up and knocked. The man who opened the door didn't look like trouble, but he didn't look trustworthy either. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, thin, nervous. He waved me in without a word and locked the door behind me. "Darvin, right?" he asked. I nodded, still unsure why I hadn't turned around. "My name's Owen," he said. "I know Myra's friend, the one from the restaurant." I stayed quiet, letting him talk. "He's not who you think he is," Owen said, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to warm up a lie. "His name's not David. It's Marcus. He changes it depending on who he's with. I know because he did the same thing to my sister." "Your sister?" I asked, finally speaking. "She met him through a client event. Just like your wife. He swept her up in 2 weeks, called her his soulmate, told her he was divorcing, promised her the world. My sister drained her savings to help him move into a new place. Then he ghosted her. 3 weeks later, she saw him at a grocery store with another woman, holding her hand, laughing like nothing ever happened. My stomach dropped. Owen pulled out a folder. Yes, a literal folder. Who has folders in 2025? Inside were screenshots, credit card charges, photos of David, or rather Marcus, with 4 different women. One looked eerily like Myra. Same smile, same tilt of the head, same look of someone who had no idea she was just the latest mark. "He targets women with access," Owen said. "My sister's an accountant. Yours, event planning, right? Big client lists, big venues, big wallets. He cozies up, gets close, and siphons what he can until he's ready to move on." Couldn't breathe. I literally forgot to breathe. Myra might have betrayed me, yes, but she was being played too. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Why now?" "Because I saw the photos," he said. "A friend of mine works at Lambert's. Recognized Marcus. Snapped pics. Sent them to me. Then I found you through a post your wife tagged you in 3 months ago. I figured you had the right to know." I sat there in silence. My mind was sprinting in 100 directions at once. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a con. And Myra, as much as I hated her for what she'd done to me, she was falling for something even worse. I stood up. Owen looked at me. "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know yet. But I knew one thing. I had to see her again. Not to scream, not to cry, to warn her. Because if Marcus really was who Owen said he was, then Myra wasn't just cheating. She was being used. By the time I pulled into the parking lot beneath our building, the sky was just beginning to lighten. That weird, dead part of morning when even the birds haven't decided if it's worth chirping yet. I sat in the car for several minutes, staring at my reflection in the windshield. I looked like I'd aged 10 years in one night. My collar was wrinkled, my eyes red, my wedding ring finger bare and pale where the band used to sit. The irony wasn't lost on me. Walking in to warn the woman who broke me about the man she replaced me with. But even if I hated what she did, I didn't want her to be destroyed. Not like this. When I entered the apartment, she was awake, sitting on the couch, legs crossed, scrolling on her phone like she hadn't just watched our marriage shatter. She didn't look surprised to see me. If anything, she looked annoyed. "Forget something?" she said flatly, not even looking up. I didn't respond. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. "We need to talk," I said. She sighed. "If you came back to guilt me, save it. I'm not going to apologize for being happy." "Happy?" I almost laughed. "You think this guy makes you happy?" She finally looked up, and the confidence in her eyes made me want to punch a wall. "He listens. He touches me like I exist. You just faded, Darvin." I nodded slowly, like I was letting that sting settle in. And then I dropped it. His name isn't David. It's Marcus. And you're not the first. That wiped the smirk off her face. I told her everything. About Owen. About the other women. About the folder of evidence. About the text messages. I even offered to show her the photos, though I didn't bring them in. I wanted to see how long it would take for denial to kick in, and I didn't have to wait long. She laughed. A short, sharp, ugly little sound that had no joy in it. "Oh my God, Darvin," she said, shaking her head. "You are so desperate to drag me down with you. It's pathetic." "I'm trying to help you," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "You can hate me all you want, but that man is using you. You're a mark, Myra, just like the others. You're jealous. He's scamming you. You're projecting." I stepped closer. I sat at your table. I saw the way he looked at me, like he didn't care, like he'd done this before. And you know what? He has. You're not special to him. You're just next. Her jaw tightened, but her hands were trembling now. That told me everything I needed to know. She didn't believe me out loud, but her body already knew I was right. She stood up and crossed her arms, pacing the room like a caged animal. "You think I don't know how you operate?" she snapped. "You're emotionally manipulative. You play the victim, then pretend you're doing it all out of love. This isn't about me. It's about the man who's draining you like a bank account." She looked at me like she wanted to say 1,000 things, and none of them nice. Then she did the last thing I expected. She picked up her phone, dialed a number, and put it on speaker. It rang once, twice. Then a robotic voice answered. "The number you are trying to reach has been disconnected or is no longer in service." Silence. She stared at the phone, thumb hovering above the screen, like she didn't believe what she just heard. I waited, watched. Her face paled slowly, her breath catching like she'd been holding it for hours. I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't need to. She whispered, He texted me this morning." I nodded. "That number? Still working?" She opened the message. Nothing. Just a blank chat. Every message they'd ever exchanged gone. Deleted. Myra sat frozen on the edge of the couch, phone still in her hand, her eyes scanning the blank screen like the messages might reappear if she stared hard enough. I didn't move. I let the silence do the talking, because there was nothing I could say that would hit harder than what she was already feeling. Everything she believed about him, about their little secret romance, was crumbling right in front of her. And for once, I wasn't the one falling apart. She looked up slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would he delete everything?" I didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. This wasn't just about lies or betrayal. This was about manipulation, control, theft, and Myra was just collateral. She stood abruptly and walked into the bedroom. I heard drawers opening, papers being rustled, hangers scraped across the metal rod in the closet. After a few minutes, she returned with a black leather folder and dropped it on the coffee table. "These are the venue contracts," she said, flipping it open. "He asked me to send over a few sample budgets so he could check for inconsistencies. He said he used to audit nonprofits and liked spotting errors." She pointed to the top sheet. "That's the wedding venue for the Connors. Budget, $180,000. High-profile clients. He said he just wanted to make sure my numbers were airtight before we finalized the deposit." I felt a slow, boiling anger rise in my chest. Did he ever ask for login credentials? Transfer access? Anything like that? Her eyes widened. "He asked for my event portal password. Said he couldn't get into the shared folder I sent." Her face drained. "Darvin, it's all linked. Vendor accounts, invoices, client deposits." My stomach dropped. "You gave it to him?" She nodded, barely. I grabbed my phone and called Owen, my hands trembling again. But this time it was rage, not sadness. He picked up on the second ring. Owen. He had access to her client accounts. She gave him passwords. We think he targeted her to skim high-end deposits. There was a pause, then a curse. "That's what he did to my sister. He created fake vendor accounts, rerouted payments, By the time anyone noticed, the real vendors were threatening lawsuits and Marcus was gone. Myra's breathing grew sharp. "We need to check my email," she said, already moving to her laptop. She pulled it open, typed frantically, and then froze. "My inbox, it's wiped. Everything from the last 2 months is gone." I grabbed the laptop, checked the trash folder. Empty. Sent messages? Gone. It was like someone had vacuumed her digital life clean. Myra stared blankly at the screen. "He told me to trust him with the hard stuff. I thought he meant planning. Not this." She started to shake, and for the first time in weeks, I saw something that resembled regret in her eyes. Not the performative kind she used when we argued. Not the cold, clipped tone she used to shut me down. This was real. Raw. I sat down beside her, still processing everything. "We need to go to your office," I said. "See what's still connected, what's been forwarded, who's been contacted. I'll lose my job. Not if we prove you were a victim." "I was more than that," she whispered. "I was an accomplice." And in that moment, it hit both of us. We weren't just dealing with a con man. We were tangled in something deeper, something that could burn down her career, my last thread of dignity, and maybe the lives of dozens of innocent clients who trusted her. We didn't sleep, not even for a minute. Myra and I sat in the living room like we were sharing a hospital vigil, trading guilt instead of comfort. The laptop sat between us like a bomb with no timer, and every passing second felt like we were losing ground. She kept refreshing her inbox. Nothing came back. The files she had saved locally were locked, corrupted, or missing entirely. Vendor communications had been rerouted. Some contracts had different routing numbers now, ones she didn't recognize. It was all slipping out of her hands. Owen called back just after 5 in the morning with a whisper of hope. "I found him," he said. "Well, I found who he used to be. Marcus or David, or whoever he claimed to be, had gone by at least 4 aliases over the last 6 years. One stood out, Lyle Everett. Owen had tracked it through a LinkedIn account that hadn't been updated in over 3 years, tied to an event security consultancy that was shut down after multiple fraud complaints. But what struck us wasn't the fake job title, it was the connections. Lyle Everett had worked, briefly, for a luxury catering group based in Chicago. They serviced high-end weddings, galas, and corporate retreats. Big money, bigger data access. Within 5 months of his hire, 5 events were hacked, emails spoofed, money rerouted, deposits lost. Lyle vanished before any charges stuck. Myra went pale. "That's where I met him," she said slowly. "That gala in Chicago. He said he was helping organize backstage security. That was over a year ago. So this wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't passion. It was planned. He must have followed her career, tracked her move to our city, kept tabs on her company. When she started managing luxury clients, he reappeared. Clean-shaven, polished, fake name, new identity, perfect timing. And Myra, despite everything, had walked right into it. We took the name to the police. The fraud department looked up the alias and confirmed they'd had an open case under that name, dormant due to lack of evidence. They took Myra's laptop, her phone, the files she'd printed. A detective named Reeves promised to escalate the case. "He's not just a cheat," Reeves said. "He's a ghost, and you're the first trail we've had in years." On the way home, Myra was silent. She kept looking out the window, blinking hard like she was trying to hold back tears and failing miserably. I couldn't tell if it was shame, fear, or grief. Maybe all 3. Back at the apartment, she sat on the floor while I made coffee. I didn't offer her any. I didn't know what gesture felt right anymore. "Do you think they'll find him?" she asked quietly. "I think he's already running," I said. "But now he knows we're chasing." She nodded. "I didn't love him," she added suddenly. "I told myself I did. But I think I just loved the way he looked at me, like I was important again, like I was seen." I didn't say anything. I didn't trust myself not to explode. Then, she stood up and walked over to the front door. She picked up a package that had been sitting there, unopened since last night. It was from one of her vendors. She ripped it open and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a bracelet. Engraved on the inside was a message that made my blood run cold. To M, you're my next investment. D. She dropped it like it burned her. And I finally understood. He hadn't just wanted access to her work. He wanted her entire life. We didn't have much time. After the bracelet arrived, it was clear Marcus, Lyle David, whatever his real name was still playing a game. Only now, he knew the board was shifting. And we needed to flip it before he disappeared again. We worked with Detective Reeves to set up a digital sting. Myra created a new email address, posed as a private consultant, with high-end venue clients looking for discreet third-party handlers. Using phrases he'd once used with her, trusted access, confidential partnerships, low visibility, she baited the hook. Within 24 hours, he took it. He replied under yet another alias, Jacob V. Same style, same flattery, same calculated promises wrapped in warmth. We knew it was him from the phrasing alone, but the tech team confirmed the IP. He was still in the city, still confident. So we made an offer too good to resist, $250,000 in vendor deposits, supposedly sitting in a single easy-to-divert account. Myra set up a fake digital dashboard that mimicked her company's interface, complete with bogus credentials. The moment he logged in and tried to reroute the test funds, bam. Trace confirmed. Location pinged. Cops moved in. They found him holed up in a short-term rental under a fake name with 4 burner phones, 2 laptops, and a stack of IDs from 3 different states, and a printed list of upcoming events across multiple cities, most of which he'd never been hired for. He was prepping to expand the scam. Myra had been just the start. The police arrested him without incident. He smirked as they cuffed him, like he was used to it. But this time, the trail was solid. The digital forensics team had everything. Emails, routing numbers, fake vendor accounts, even recordings of calls he'd made impersonating event staff. It was over. In the following weeks, things slowly began to settle. Myra came clean to her clients, her employer, and most importantly, to herself. She offered full cooperation with the investigation, and thanks to her willingness to expose everything, her company didn't press charges. They quietly let her go, yes, but they didn't destroy her. As for me, I moved out 2 days after the arrest. We didn't scream. We didn't cry. I think we both understood that trust, once shattered like that, doesn't glue back together just because the enemy is gone. But here's the strange thing. Despite everything, I don't hate her. She lost herself in the flattery of a professional manipulator. She stopped seeing me and I stopped fighting to be seen. We both let go long before she ever stepped into that booth with him. But in helping take him down, she found some sliver of herself again. The part that used to believe in things like second chances, accountability, and telling the truth even when it shakes. We haven't spoken in a while. But last I heard, she was volunteering at a nonprofit that helps women spot financial predators. Maybe that's her penance. Maybe it's her healing. Either way, I hope she's doing better. As for me, I'm learning to like the sound of my own silence again. And sometimes that's enough. You're watching Reddit Confessions. Now it's your turn. Tell us in the comments, what's a historical scam or deception that shocked you when you learned about it? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and come back for more real stories with real endings. Sometimes messy, sometimes redemptive, but always unforgettable.